Well, Ellen, thank you so much for making time to share your insights into the future of leadership.
It's a pleasure.
But before we delve into leadership, can you share with us, where did you grow up?
I was born in Johannesburg. Johannesburg has always been my home, although I do live half the year in London today, in the UK. But South Africa is my home, my first love. And I grew up in Johannesburg and schooled in Johannesburg, and I'm 60 years old now, so most of my life in Johannesburg.
And what was your dream career as you grew up?
If I think back on my life, I've been working for nearly 40 years. I wouldn't change a thing. So one of the most exciting things, I finished school just after the Soweto riots in South Africa, where there was a huge amount of uncertainty. I went to Wits to study law and dropped out after 6 months, being very, very ADHD and being very curious. And one of my biggest passions at that point was I really wanted to travel and see the world. So that was in the late 70s. And my father, am I answering your question?
Where did you start your career?
Okay, so I went to university. My mother said I had too much to say, so I'd be a good lawyer. Well, that lasted 6 months, and I realized that I didn't have the interest nor the aptitude to sit and look at books and read law reports all day long, so I wanted to get into business. And my father, who was going through a rough period in his business at that point, it was just post 1976, and business was very tough for him, and he offered me a job on the following basis. He'll give me money for Saturday night to date and to go and enjoy myself, but he really couldn't pay me a salary, but I needed to come and help him. And so I joined him. It was pretty much my first job, and I had one job. I've had one place of work my whole life.
And that was an apparel business.
Yeah, so my father had a business in South Africa. It started in 1964. It was a business buying and selling work clothing. So he would call on little factories in Johannesburg. There was quite a large clothing industry in Johannesburg, down in Doornfontein, and he would go and sell clothing to the workers, and whether it was medical workers or factory workers, that was the business. And I joined him in about 1977, and that's how we started.
And I believe you did a lot to reinvent the business.
Well, I always had itchy feet, and as I said to you earlier, I always wanted to travel and see the world. And so my first world was to travel and see South Africa. So I obviously pre-fax days, even certainly pre-internet days, I used to go wherever I was traveling. I would go and take a Yellow Pages from a local town. I would tear out or steal the Yellow Pages, and I would take them home and research and send letters then, no emails. And I started to expand my horizon and write and phone these prospective customers around South Africa. I then started looking into Africa and started traveling all over Africa. So in the early 80s, I was quite a unique person in terms of very few South African, certainly white guys, were traveling deep into Africa, and I went all over Africa, into Uganda, Kenya, Congo, Malawi, looking for opportunities to sell my products. And at that stage, there was very little trade from South Africa, other than the very large groups like Metro Cash and Carry and these sort of guys who had stores in some of these remote places. And so I started selling everything that we made, and we certainly we used to supply construction people, a lot of military, paramilitary clothing, but I then got asked for things like pharmaceuticals, or tools and hardware, and I started becoming a bit of a smos, coming back to Johannesburg, finding different products and selling it and exporting it around Africa. Obviously post 1994, things opened up for all South Africans, where travel was much easier, and Africa certainly opened up for the world. But by then I'd really taken the business into the world. I then started traveling into Europe and into the United States, where I started this chef clothing business in 1993, in fact, when on a visit to the United States.
Now, you obviously reinvented the art and science of chef apparel.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit more? Where did you get this idea from?
Okay. So my main, I was looking for products. So I'd grown up inside, spent a lot of time with my father in clothing factories, in textile mills, and I had a fair idea how you could do a project, make, whether it was hospital clothing or military clothing or construction clothing. I knew how to go and do those kinds of projects. I wanted to expand the business. I always knew if I want to travel and build a worldwide business, which was always my goal. I knew that I had to find a product that would easily be adaptable in any country. For example, mining clothing in Canada is very specific to, there's very strong rules and regulations and compliance for different fabrics and so on. So mining clothing, although South Africa was a strong mining country, what worked in South Africa didn't work in Canada. And I looked around, and the thing that excited me about the hospitality and the chef clothing world was that this was the same whether you were a chef in Cape Town or New Zealand or Alaska or China. You were wearing a pretty similar kind of chef's apparel. So my first interest was, and in those days, in the early 90s, chef's apparel was an extremely basic item. You had a basic white jacket, a black pair of pants, a white apron, and a chef hat, and that's all we had in our offering.
Basic and boring.
Basic and boring, and that's pretty much the revolution. So my timing. So I first identified that chef clothing would be an opportunity. And when we first started in the United States, I was on a trip in Washington. My wife couldn't get me into another museum because I was bored as hell. So I sat in a shopping center and started walking around and came across a kitchen shop, a shop selling kitchen equipment. And they had some chef's clothing in the shop. And I looked at this item, or this jacket that they had, and it was about $48, I remember. And I was thinking, hell, I can make this for about $3 back in South Africa. And that inspired me to go back and look at the project, and I found a way to make a range of products, get it off into the United States, and start selling it in a very small way in the United States. And by starting this business in the US and starting to look for customers, we happened to be in the right place at the right time in terms of the food revolution. All the chefs, all the cooking channels and all the celebrity chefs. And the 90s was when they first started in the United States, where it became a huge following, fashion, and so we started adapting our products. So we started getting into theme. We started making colorful pants with chili peppers and implements on them, and then we started putting a bit of color into the chef's jackets, and in fact going right away from a pure white chef jacket into black jackets and red jackets, and then we started getting into the hotels, where we started to customize the chef's clothing for these hotels, and there grew the idea and the focus. And what was great about it again is that there were the compliance and the regulations were null and void for kitchens. Strangely enough, chefs cook in front of open fire. And you'd think that there would be a lot of regulations in terms of fireproof and thing, but there was very little. Even in the United States, where they overcomplicate a lot of the compliance issues, there was nothing regulating what chefs could or couldn't wear in the kitchens. And so the main issue, the reason that I tell you that is polyester, cotton, what most fabrics are made from, is probably quite inflammable. And it's not inflammable, so quite flammable. And so working in front of an open flame would be quite dangerous with polyester, but yet 99% of the kitchens around the world, the chefs were cooking with polyester content in their jackets and their clothing. So there was very little regulation, and so we went, and we started making, and we started getting into hotels and restaurants and casinos, and then our big breakthroughs came when we started supplying into the casinos in Las Vegas, and that became a huge part of our business. So
today Chefworks is a global brand.
Today Chefworks is the largest chef clothing brand in the world. We sell into about 80 countries in the world. and we're growing still. We've got 34 franchises around the world, so we've got fantastic people in South America, in Australia, in Asia, in Europe, in North America that have taken on a fully fledged franchise of ours. So they set up businesses with our name. So you'd have Chefworks Australia, or Chefworks Hong Kong, or Chefworks Canada, and they would run with our brand, all our branding and all our products, and we supply them, and we earn a royalty for our fee. So it's a royalty model for the greater part of the world, and it's fabulous. I mean, as I said, 80 countries in the world. We're growing into China now. We just opened recently in Japan. We have offices in Manila, Hong Kong, Shanghai. Just on the Asian side, we're selling into some of the islands, bits and pieces, even into Guam, which is, made it into the news recently. I hope it's still there.
I seem to remember that you're obviously headquartered in San Diego.
Well, the biggest part of the Chefworks business is the American market. We absolutely dominate in the American market. We probably have 80% of the market, and we're growing fast every year. We've taken some of the biggest contracts in the world in the food service industries. We do huge business with some of the biggest food service companies like Sodexo and Compass. We supply some of the largest laundries in the world. One of the largest laundry group that does huge amounts of washing and supplying clothing into food service and food processing type companies. So
I seem to remember reading that Chefworks is about a $300 million brand. Is that right?
Well, today we believe that we're north of $500 million. The value of the brand, the value of the brand in terms of American valuations, we come to that figure. However, we haven't sold the business, so we're a private company, and so obviously our turnover is not a published thing. It's a closed thing. But if you take our valuations in American PEs as we see them in the US, we're very much north of $500 million, and we believe we can get it up to $1 billion. So which makes, I think, $500 million is a 6 billion rand company today. So it's beyond any wildest dream I could ever.
Now, Alan, as an innovator, I need to ask you. Obviously, you came at the right time, at the right place. You were close enough to your customers to really understand what was motivating them. Was there a single point of inspiration, or who or what inspired you along the way?
As I said to you earlier, I've always been very curious and wanted to travel. And I've traveled the world. There's very few places that I haven't been to in the world. And every time I've traveled, I've learned something new, and I've gained more insight into opportunities. It's been a huge motivating factor for me, and I'm at the age of 60, and I'm pretty much semi-retired. I spend probably 20% of my time on work, on the Chefworks work, but I am still constantly finding new opportunities and new innovations. Technology has become a huge part of our business around the world. We've invested heavily into the platforms. We've got a huge initiative going into China right now with Jack Ma's group, Tmall and JD. We're operating very heavily now on WeChat, which is there's a strong South African connection with Tencent, and I think it's Mr. Koos Becker's Nassau Pest. Not that we have any with them, but we're using their platform, and it's a hugely helpful platform. My biggest dream is to have 1,000 stores, retail stores in China and India. And that's obviously through our licensing model. We've been licensing our brand now. We license our brand to one of the largest laundry groups in the world. We have an exclusive agreement with them in the United States to supply them. It's huge for us. It's for them. It's well over $1 billion of revenue for them. For us, it's a fantastic growth point for us. Besides the laundries, we're also growing very strongly in retail. So we've supplied We have some of our franchise holders around the world have opened up retail shops. We do supply one of the biggest hospitality groups in South Africa, an ex-South African entrepreneur. Mr. Nathan Kirsch has a business in the United States called Restaurant Depot, and we're very strongly in their group selling retail into the hospitality market. So we many channels, but the most exciting and probably the most frightening channel is
China.
Is the platform Amazon.
Oh.
Amazon is a frightening business. I just saw the news today that Toys R Us are going belly up, and the problem with for the rest of the world is that Amazon are so far ahead on the technology and the platform. Their ability to service people generally is on a different level. We do huge business with Amazon, but we're disconnecting with our customers. So Amazon is growing stronger and stronger with its growth. I think the strongest part of what we have and the most relevant thing is we have a brand, and our brand is we're the leaders in the world. And being a brand, being the strongest brand, Amazon look to us to fill, to supply. They do carry quite a lot of other brands as well in our field, but we have a great connection with them, and they're awesome in the way they go about it. However, they also it's also crushing a lot of conventional bricks and mortar type businesses who are scrambling to catch up. Walmart is half the market cap of Amazon. I think Walmart's 270 billion. Amazon is a $500 billion company. So and it doesn't own a store, or they're starting to own stores. It's not quite correct there, but Amazon is so it's a huge. So technology is hugely important for us. We spend a lot of money on social media. I sit with young 20-year-olds and have to help make board decisions on technology and things. Half the stuff I don't quite know how it works, and I don't actively participate. Of course, I make sure I understand what it does, but I'm not sure that I like this whole social media thing. But there's no question that it's a huge part of our business. We've got very strong people that we've employed to handle this stuff, from Google to WeChat to Instagram to all the popular platforms, and we spend a lot of money on that. Funny enough, my son from Hong Kong sent me a video of this guy from Gum Gum Style. This Korean guy who does this song Gum Gum Dum Dum Style, whatever it is. He was just filmed recently in the Venetian Casino in Macau, dancing in one of our chef's jackets. So we were very excited. But about 15 seconds of this guy, PSY, I think they call him. Okay. He's the guy who did the Gum Gum thing, and his latest video, he's for 15 seconds of this 5-minute video, he's dancing in a Chef Works jacket. So we were very excited.
So Alan, you've built up a global brand, and I believe you are handing over the reins to your son.
Yes. Okay. So I have two sons who've joined the business in different forms. My eldest son when he finished, qualified as a chartered accountant in South Africa, he immediately left to go, and he traveled with me quite a lot around the world, and he always knew I had a dream to build a business in China, and he got quite excited about that, and he wanted to go and start a business in Chef Works franchise in China, in Hong Kong, and he left about 7 years ago, and so he's 33 today. His brother, who's 31, also qualified as a chartered accountant through Deloitte 2 years later. He also said he's off to China. He's going to join his brother. And my son Adam, the eldest son, built the franchise in China, and he's taken the business into Shanghai, into Japan, to Manila, and all over into Thailand and Vietnam, and all over all the Asian countries. And my son Josh my middle son, he took over the global sourcing of our business, and he built the platform for us to and took over the sourcing from all our factories. We make in about 10 countries now, right now. Sorry, 10 factories in about 6 countries. We manufacture different products. Clothing production is still quite a clumsy, grassroots operation, and so we learned. We've had to bring a quite archaic factory, and a lot of the factories are still very, very basic, unautomated environments. We've had to try and automate all our planning, and because of the consumption of all our franchises around the world, and loading the factories, and finding capacity when factories are filling up, and moving capacity to other places of the world. So we're very, in terms of our risk mitigation, we've got multi-million-dollar contracts that we have to be accurate with. We can't lose these contracts.
Sure.
And so we've been voted in the USA by one of the biggest food service companies, Sodexo, in the world as their number one supplier. So we've won awards from in terms of our ability to both innovate and supply, which is very, very flattering for us, and but we don't take any of this for granted. We are very, very aggressive in our systems and keeping at the forefront in the market. So it's a huge focus of ours to innovate and to lead, and our ranges have grown from those 4 items that I started with in the United States in '93. It's become a huge catalogue of products, a whole variety. We've gone very strongly into from the chef staff into the wait staff. So we're also doing the front of the house. We're not really tuned in to do the suiting like you would see at the front of the hotels and that sort of thing. Although we do get to do that sometimes in some places in the world. But so our main focus are the chefs and the waiters in the world, and that's where. And we created a brand about 4 years ago, 3.5 years ago, called the Urban Range, which has been a huge success for us in the world. It's growing extremely fast. This is the very sort of great for the pubs and the delis and the really themed type establishment. So the white bread, white milk business is the chef's business of yesteryear. The new business is all the deli food and the interesting and innovative food, and so we supply some of the top restaurants in the world, some of the top chefs in the world. At times have worn our clothing.
So Ellen, at this point in your life,
Yeah.
What is driving you? What is driving Ellen personally?
I'm very. I love the business. I mean, you asked me in the beginning what I would do exactly what I did again. All I had was a high school education, but I always had the ambition to see the world and to build something meaningful in the world. I fly all over the world. This year I've been traveling incessantly. I almost don't get excited to sit in an aeroplane because it can be quite tiring. But I'm excited to arrive at the next destination. So I love to go and see new places, visit new opportunities, and that's what I get up for. I'm still excited about the business. I still see huge growth in our business. I love what the technology is doing for us. We are no longer just selling a product at a price. We sell a solution. We've got customers in the United States, for example, that have 2,500 locations. Now, how do you give 2,500 locations with 150,000 staff? The uniforms, keep them all in the same. Manage their uniforms. Watch the consumption. See that somebody doesn't get more uniforms than they're entitled to. Uniforms is a huge cost to most organizations, hotels, food service companies. It can come to multi-millions of dollars, and we've given them the ability to monitor their own programs. They can instantaneously see what their consumption is, where products are. We've got very, very involved in helping in the RFID chip part of monitoring uniforms. We're looking at some exciting businesses where we're going to get involved ourselves with the RFID. So we work with the monitor. The RFID chips are sewn into the garment. They're embedded into the garment, and they can track that garment for the life of the garment. So, for example, a place like MGM in Las Vegas, it's got 5,000 bedrooms. It's got about 7,500 staff. How do you process 7,500 people on night shift and day shift? You can't have lockers for these people. You can't have. So they have these huge change rooms with automated laundry systems and automated filing systems, so that when a man comes to work in the morning and he's a chef, he puts his card into a slot and opens up a door, and there's his uniforms in a bag. He goes and changes, takes his uniforms that he's come to work in, puts them back in the bag and stores them while he's at work for the day. At the end of the day, he throws those uniforms, dirty uniforms, into a bin through an RFID reader, and he slides his card into the reader, and his civilian clothing comes back to him, and he can go home. So the processing of uniforms and it fits amazingly into our world.
Now, Alan, let's talk about leadership.
Yeah.
What does the future of leadership mean to you?
Okay, so it's a scary world we live in. I think that you can either have analysis paralysis and sit and read everything. One of the things that I said to you in the beginning of this interview is that my travel has exposed me to multiple ideas and multiple people. I don't think there's one trip that I've ever done, and in the 35 years of travel that I've done, that I haven't learned something new. And it's not only to go and do business. It's just strategically helping our business, which I've spent a huge amount of my time monitoring and thinking. So from a leadership point of view, I believe you cannot operate in this global world without exposing yourself to the ideas. One needs to be open to the new technologies. As I said earlier, I am 60, and I'm sitting with young guys and girls in their 20s that have got amazing technology ability, and we're having to listen very carefully and adopt what the new styles, the new things. So, and they very demanding, the new technology people. So, and rightfully so, because their skill levels are enormous, and they've got enormous amount to offer a modern business. So, I don't believe that you can survive if you aren't adopting the technology, and so your leadership. You have to be able to, especially as an older generation board member, and we've got a strict decision in our business to build a young board in waiting, because most of my board is moving into their 50s and into their 60s, and so we have and we're too old in terms of even understanding some of the technology. So the ability to sit and listen and adopt and strategize. So, if you're asking from a management style point of view, or just what I see in leadership, I think just the straightforward, the good MBAs that in terms of getting skill sets is still a fantastic ability. But I think one of the things that worked for me, because I'm not educated, but I educated myself as I traveled and I exposed myself to people, was the ability to learn and listen and adopt things. My biggest inspiration was a South African man by the name of Wolfgang Glücke. Wolfgang Glücke was an IBM executive, and he wrote several business books that inspired me, and I went to listen to some of his talks, and he was very, very innovative. He spent a lot on the think tanks on future technology. So he inspired me to get into the internet in the first place, and I was one of the first adopters, early adopters, to the point that in the United States, when we launched our website, we were probably one of the first chef clothing companies in the USA to probably be selling online, and we had a very happy time of it until people obviously cottoned on to what we were doing and copied us, and so. Do you want me to elaborate more on leadership? I'm not sure I've answered your question there.
Well, one aspect. What is it that you've learned from your own journey that you consider really important for building future leaders?
in the time that I've spent with middle management and youth, I find that in the corporate world, I find that people there's too much cookie cutter mentality. I think even when I look at some of the top guys in the world and the smart guys, I think that and I don't believe in the word luck, but I think you make, I think it was Gary Player that said the harder you practice, the better you get. And I believe that the harder that you get out there and listen and learn and think, the better you get. So I think that's a hugely important part of growth.
And when you speak to aspiring leaders, maybe even your sons, what do you tell them they should focus on for future-proofing their career?
So my sons, fortunately for them, they understand the numbers better than me. When we sit at our board meeting, we've got about 8 accountants sitting around the table. They always put up one of the accountants next to me. So I've got to look at it on not the financial side of me is not strong. I'm an entrepreneur. I have vision. I always wanted to build, and I always understood that once I got this right in America, I could take it everywhere, and I've done exactly that. So that's been a hugely validating part of my life. But you repeat the question.
Well, when you speak to aspiring leaders, future leaders, what is it you tell them they should focus on?
Okay. I think that if you have an idea and a belief, you need to focus and you need to push very hard. I think a lot of people are distracted by how the speed of things that are going. The problem, I think, with let's take the app world. I think that once the idea gets out, any smart coder can sit down and launch that business in a different name and a different thing. So it's the ideas that are amazing. I've just been with a bunch of fintech guys in Amsterdam for a week, and I'm off at the end of the month to a conference which is the biggest one outside of Silicon Valley in Helsinki, where I'm looking at innovative guys, innovative products, and all the time, both for my own private investment, but also to look for those ideas and how people are thinking. So the speed is frightening. You cannot keep up with everything, but you have to be brave. So this word entrepreneur, I'm afraid it scares me a lot, because because you go and do a course at university to become an entrepreneur doesn't necessarily match with being an entrepreneur. I think you have to be brave. You have to be focused, and you guaranteed you have to be ready to take the knocks, the hard knocks, and the knocks where you think it's impossible. It's like getting a heavyweight punch, and you've got to get off the canvas to get up and carry on fighting. Pretty much that. So if you can't take punches and that, I would say to you, in the previous world, because the world's changed, there's no safe jobs anymore. We just spoke about it earlier. You could have been one of the 160,000 Toys R Us employees who are not going to be employed tomorrow because they're shutting down that business. And you just have to see that the announcement when Amazon announced that they're going into the Whole Foods, they bought the Whole Foods business. All the major opposition food companies in the world, all their prices came off hard. When Amazon finally got the deal approved, the first thing he announced is a 45% reduction in the prices. All those shares again, all tanked. So that there's even if your company, and I know that a company like Walmart is spending millions, probably billions on technology. I hope they catch Amazon up, because it's be terrible if just one company dominates all of this, because I hope that there'll be people left in the world to buy the products that they sell, because they will all be unemployed. So I think you have to be brave, and you can't, you have to focus, and you can't worry about what everybody else is doing. You have to, we all have a certain ability, and we recognize that. And and unfortunately, I think it's a thing that happens a lot in America, where they tell the kids you can be anything you want to. Well, it doesn't quite work like that. The world's you can have a you can have a lot of, again, I would use the word luck, and you can get a breakthrough and be in the right place at the right time. I think that happened in my life. If I said to you I had an amazing plan to build this thing and I knew exactly where I was going, no. I adapted it as I grew, and I put great people around me and with me, and partners that went with me on this journey, and we built a wonderful business together. But if I sit here and take credit for all of it, no. I inspired it in the beginning, but I certainly have been left behind even right now by smart youngsters like my sons who think on their feet. They've had the luxury of a lot of stuff presented to them, but they're very proud of them. They've adopted it, and they're both leaders. They both innovated. They're both entrepreneurs, and they both think strongly out of the box. And one has to, otherwise you just ain't going to cut it. They're different. From a leadership point of view, again, there are different types of leaders that inspire. I'm very strong on selling and thing, but probably not the best on the back end of it, the analytical stuff, and I have to rely on strong support from people like that. So I don't think there's a total all-rounder type of person. Probably is, but they exist. But I think that it's very rare that everybody's everything. And so recognize your strengths, work on your weaknesses, but learn and don't, because you attend a college or a university that says you're going to get an entrepreneurial degree at the end of this thing. That's no guarantee that you'll be a successful entrepreneur. But if you've got some idea or some focus, you've got to focus on it and drive that hard and sweat it until you either succeed or you fail. And when you fail, you've got to make up your mind to carry on or get up off the canvas or go and do something different. But there's no guarantees in any of this.
Now, Ellen, when it comes to technology, obviously you are leveraging technology in your business, you're investing in technology.
Correct.
In your view, which are the technologies or maybe the tools of technology that future leaders should learn, should master, should look at?
Okay, so again, mastering a particular technology, unless you're an analytical person, unless you've got the brain to go and learn to code, I mean, that is really for young people coming. I think I would say that, and there are amazing boot camps, especially in Silicon Valley. I was in San Francisco. In fact, I'm going in 2 weeks' time to San Francisco again on a tour. We're going to some of the biggest technology companies in the world. We're going to Facebook and Apple and all over to go and visit and learn and thing. And so I certainly can't sit and code, and I can't write an app. But youngsters who have that ability should learn to code as well. It's just the thing. I think that there's no one technology that you can master and then that becomes your saving grace. I think you have to be open to listening to all the technologies and seeing how all this works together. Along came Google, and then along came Apple after Google, and we're watching the fight between Apple and Google for their space and the ad space, and there's a huge, and there's no one's quite sure who's winning, and then there's going to be some technology that comes along after that and knocks them over or certainly has a good go at it. So I don't believe that there's any. I think you have to go and expose yourself to all these technologies to understand, certainly to have an idea of how they can benefit your business. If you're a high street butcher down the road from us, and you go and buy your meat and you cut it up and you sell it to fresh meat to the market, well, at this stage in time, Amazon isn't delivering meat to your front door. So that type of business is not relying on technology. Maybe they're monitoring their inventory faster, and they're getting better financial information to run their business. But does what's happening in the world matter? Yes, probably. Maybe a bit of Instagram, a bit of Facebooking, promoting. Yes, so they would need to learn that part of their business. So it's got to be appropriate to the type of business. I'm in the kind of business that needs it all. So we need to be very switched on to which technologies are working. For example, Amazon is extremely strong in the world outside of China. They are now having a full go at getting back into China because Jack Ma leads. He controls 80% of that market with Tmall. And so it's a hugely exciting thing. I mean, they have, I think they have a Singles Friday or something where you know, I don't know, $10 billion is purchased in one day.
That's
so
right.
I can't, I'm to be corrected on those numbers, but it's an amazing market. Now, how do you get your product into the face of those singles guys or women that are buying a product that's, you know, and so we've got our Chefworks offering is a fantastic offering. It's www.chefworks.com. So I have to get a bit of an advert in there. But Chefworks, we've got amazing stuff that can work not only in the hospitality industry. So we're very excited to take our products into the Chinese market for barbecue, briflace industry, the presents for Mother's Day and Father's Day. You know, one of our beautiful urban aprons is a great present rather than getting another tie that people don't even wear anymore. You know, rather get an apron, a kitchen apron from one of the Chefworks range, which we've got a huge range of products. So yeah, the technology, one has to open your mind to all of it, and you've got to be totally exposed to all of it and listen. And some stuff will resonate and be more relevant, and some stuff will be less relevant. So
now, Alan, I know you are mentoring. You have been mentoring
yes,
a number of future leaders.
yes.
Can you maybe share with us a success story or two where you mentored somebody and that person took your advice to heart?
Okay, I mentor a brilliant young man in Johannesburg here, who runs a business called Excel Academy. A young man by the name of Dan Stillerman. I certainly can't teach him anything about, you know, he's a smart boy, but what I've been helping him with is to think about his business as a global business rather than a South African business. He started it 3.5-4 years ago. He's built this training business to teach people in his own unique way how to use Excel. I think most of us only use about 2 or 5% of the ability of Excel, and he's going around the world now, and he's got some huge corporations. Recently got Bloomberg in New York, and he's got you know, Deloitte and I think Investec, and he trains a lot of these very, very big corporate type business. He's got an amazing style to do that. So I couldn't hardly use Excel. So I'm certainly not teaching him anything about Excel. But what I am spending a lot of time with him is just talking about how to look at business, how to deal with people. I think some of not the weaknesses, but I think just from an experience point of view, that you can't know it all. It doesn't matter how brilliant you are. If you aren't open to learn from other people's point of view, you may not agree with anybody's point of view, but you need to listen. I think the biggest problem with most of us in this world is we're going too fast and we don't listen enough, and we talk too much. Probably been very guilty of it in my life, but so with this particular fella, he's building a wonderful business, and he's very, very smart, and I'm loving the interaction. So I'm learning, you know. So I love the teaching part of it. You know, I don't do it commercially. I do it for the fun of it, and I love the interaction. He has adopted a number of the ideas that I've presented to him in terms of strategy and that, and he's you know, he's thrilled by his success, and he's growing. I can't claim any of that. You know, at the end of the day, he made all the decisions, and whether he adopted some of them or most of them or none of them, he's very, you know, we spend quite a bit of time interacting, and I love that. I think I get more out of it than he does, which is just to listen to how a smart young mind works, and. So yeah, that's pretty much my. And I've got about 4 guys that I talk to from time to time, and I help, and yeah, I love that space. I love that interaction, and I don't do it commercially. I do it purely for the love of it.
Now, Alan, are there any role models of leadership, or maybe books about leadership, that you would recommend future leaders should study?
Well, certainly yours.
Thank you.
You're a very, very innovative way of thinking. I love the fact that you've used the South African theme to your the book that I read recently, and yeah, I think that whether everything you say, Nick, is easily adoptable or not, it's a trigger. We all need these triggers because often consultants or things we read are we know these things in sort of inherently. We know what, but we just don't. We're paralyzed, or we just can't get that stone moving that rolls down the mountain that becomes an avalanche. And I think you need to get an idea from something. So one has to read, one has to expose oneself to think. For me in the late 90s, it was Mr. Wolfgang Grilke. I was extremely inspired by his books and his ideas and his talks, and he certainly he you know, for his time was my most inspiring thing. You know, I've read a lot of the books. You know, you read a book like Branson's book about Branson and Peter Thiel in Silicon Valley recently, and you know, these sort of guys, they're fascinating stories. Do I feel that I can adopt something that they think? I don't know. Maybe there's something that comes out of your psyche somewhere down the line, but in a concrete way, I can't really attach something significant or definite to the idea that I learnt or was exposed to. It's a matter of learning from all of these things.
Right.
Whether it becomes just a casual talking point. You know, I read the book by. In fact, I've just finished an amazing book by a guy who worked in Silicon Valley called Crazy Monkeys, and he worked for Facebook for 2 years in the ad industry, and it was an amazing insight into Facebook. And what I realized is it's an extremely powerful and difficult to tackle type of industry where the dominant players in the world, like the Facebooks and the Apples and the things, are extremely difficult to topple, and Google, of course. So you know, if one has ambitions, and I mean, I'm certainly not in the tech world, other than, you know, I just fascinated by it and invest in the. You know, can one easily scale a business to that level? I think those things come along very rarely. They make a lot of people very rich, and they are really brilliant people. These young techie guys. They've with Stanford you know, PhDs and so on. These are no slouches. These are extremely bright minds, and you know. But it takes a Larry Page and a Brin to come up with the Google algorithms, and you know, off you go, and you've got a business that's just scary. I mean, it's, you know, it's in its power.
Now, Alan, where can people follow you and maybe follow Chefworks, and how can they connect with you?
Well, if you're in the hospitality industry, and if you think if you have any connection to that world, we've got fantastic platforms. I'm a lesser adopter of all of this, but you know, obviously the younger generation and the chefs of the world, and that we've got a huge following from some of the top chefs in the world, and we interact with them, and we at trade shows with them. So if you get onto our main website, www.chefworks.com, one word, Chefworks with an S at the end.
Right.
There are the Twitters and the Instagrams and all those things are highlighted on the website. Personally, I can be contacted at Alan, ALAN, at chefworksworld.com.
Okay.
So, that's my main email address. I'm not a very good LinkedIn or Facebooker, although I've got a very light connection to both, but not because I don't believe in either of them. They are hugely strong, and and I have a huge amount of my colleagues and staff are very, very connected in that world, and I get it. I just don't particularly like it myself. But certainly, if someone wants to interact with me, my email is there. You know, and I do like interacting, but in a less invasive kind of way. And I find the platforms for me personally very invasive. So I'm not the best advert for them, but realize the power of them. Absolutely.
Now, Alan, last but not least, is there one bit of advice that you would really like to give to future leaders and ask them to take to heart?
I think it's absolutely critical to continually learn. I think if you think that you've got things worked out at any time, you're dead in the water. I think that just when you think your business is in the right direction, you can be swamped and taken over or knocked out by the next smart move that's out there. So that's ideas, and knowing, we dealt with it earlier, from an entrepreneur's point of view, you've got to be curious, you've got to learn, you've got to speak to people. I wasn't the most open type of person, but I taught myself that you needed to talk to people, engage with people, and you know what? It's the easiest thing to show an interest in somebody and learn from them, ask them how they are and what they do, and you'll be amazed that most people love to talk about themselves and love to share, and learn to listen. But you know, we, as I said earlier, you need to have a focus. Can't just be an entrepreneur because you say you've done a course or you call yourself an entrepreneur. You've got to keep learning. If you don't stop learning, don't stop reading, don't stop exposing yourself, I'm afraid you're going to be left behind. This world is moving too fast. It's ruthless. It doesn't take prisoners. It spits you out very, very quickly. And if you want to survive in it, you've got to differentiate yourself. You've got to find what's good, and you've got to be, and more than anything, you need to work with integrity and honesty, and you need to be, you know, if you once you build a customer base or anything, you need to treat them with the greatest respect, because it's very difficult to get those customers in the first place, whatever your business, whether it's service or whatever industry you're in. So, you know, whether you're a doctor treating patients without even, you know, disregarding them in the waiting room, doesn't matter how long they wait, not apologizing. I think that's service. Having a customer and not informing them that there's a problem with the product or thing is you know, not giving service. And I'm afraid these are things that you have to learn the hard way. But you've got to have integrity with what you do, and you've got to carry on opening your mind to it. And I think to the day you die, if you stop learning, that's the day you die. Because you know, if one has the ability to hop off, you know, you've made a fortune of money, you're no longer driven by wanting to build a business and that sort of thing. You've still got to find something to do and keep interest in. I think this world is such an interesting place to live in. I mean, from the wild technology out there to the wild politics, everything is instantaneous. There's so much information. There's your ability to learn something is at your fingertips, off a smartphone, off a laptop. It's an easiest thing to connect, and it's don't stop learning. If you stop learning, you're in trouble.
Alan, thank you so much for
Pleasure, Nick.
sharing your wisdom and sharing your 35 years of entrepreneurship and innovation.
Well, you've left out about another 40 years.
40 years.
Yeah, I thank you. I've enjoyed chatting to you.
And thank you for showing us what is possible, even when you drop out of university.
Sure. Well, I think they would have thrown me out had I not dropped out.
So this is great. I'm wishing you all the best.
Thanks, Nick.
You and your sons, and obviously Chap Works.
Thank you.
And please keep traveling and keep inspiring us.
Will do. Thank you. Cheers, Nick.